This is Texas Rangers field reporter Emily Jones, and you're listening to the Ranger Report podcast.
Whoa, Ranger Report. Oh, Ranger Report. If you want the inside scoop, listen to the Ranger Report. All right, yeah, here we go.
This is the Ranger Report podcast. News, insights, predictions, interviews, and information about the Texas Rangers from the major leagues to the minor leagues. And now, here are your hosts, Ben Dieter and CJ Berryman.
Experience the joy of watching your friends and family's faces light up when you feed them wild game you harvested and made into delicious sausages, or meat you barbecue and grill with the finest seasonings available. Visit our friends at Waltons.com to find everything you need to turn wild game into tasty meat snacks, or spice up your barbecue with new flavors and seasonings. With over 500 seasonings to choose from, there's something that everyone will love. They even have step-by-step videos and how-to articles at Meatgistics to help you go from animal to edible. Use coupon Rangers15 at checkout to save 15% on your first order at Waltons.com. Waltons, everything but the meat.
Welcome to the Ranger Report podcast. I am CJ Berryman. You can find me at CJB_RR on the Twitter box, thingamajiggy. And we are also represented by Walton's. Walton's everything but the meat. We're also represented by Dallas Sports Nation. And we have a special guest today. Unfortunately, Ben is not here. He's too busy adulting while I play on the podcast. And we have Rangers field reporter Emily Jones. How you doing today, Em?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you. Adulting sucks for sure.
Yeah, it does. Texas Tech alum and former Plainview Dam Bulldog.
Yeah. Angry Red, enough said. You don't even remember that. You're too young. But that was our slogan when I was, I think, in like junior high. It was Angry Red, enough said. And then we just went to straight Bulldogs.
Go Herd.
Go Herd. Good boys from there. Hodges boys are good boys. Slade and Cody.
Yeah, y'all can't see this, but we are on Zoom and I'm wearing my Hereford gear. Emily's not wearing her Plainview gear because she's not representing.
I'm not representing. I'm always representing. Bulldogs are forever in my heart, for sure.
All right. And so actually last week you dodged the bullet. I think you should be a meteorologist on the side because all that nasty weather came in and you got the hell out of Dodge. So talk about your vacation.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was definitely planned. We had a wedding to go to, and they got married on 2/2/22, so we've had the flights booked forever. But I was not upset about the timing of that trip for sure.
How was the weather down there?
It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was great. It was hard to come home, but missed my kids. So it was, I could find the positives on both sides. Great to get away, but good to come home.
Right on. Well, let's get down to brass tacks. Let's talk about the lockout. You gave me the green light. You're willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and say it. It's a pain in the ass. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's super unfortunate, and it's part of the game. It's part of the business side of this thing. And unfortunately, you've got to get to like the edge of the cliff before you start doing anything. And I think that's what we've seen here. I think that's what you see with the vast majority of labor negotiations. And it just sucks because our game at this point in time can't really afford to take a whole lot of hits. And, right. And the way this is done somewhat publicly is not a good look for the game itself. But I can see, I guess I can see both sides of it. I tend to, because I'm not a billionaire, I tend to, side with the players on most things. Just because they're a little more relatable, I guess. I have a hard time even grasping the whole, wealth situation of the 32 owners in Major League Baseball. And so, it's just unfortunate. And I'm so ready to just put this behind us and not have to deal with it for a while. And we can just think about, baseball, especially this off season, since the Rangers, actually did some really cool stuff.
Very cool stuff.
Yeah. And it just sucked because we were so excited. We get to meet all these new players that are going to make an impact. And then it's like, oh, and now you can't, talk about them. We can't. And it's just not fun, but I'm still so thrilled about the moves that the Rangers made. I don't think they're done. And I'm just ready to get on to baseball.
Yeah, and Rob Manfred came out and said some things yesterday. Obviously, the first parts were scripted by the owners, and he was pretty much reporting things, and they were all really good. But they're making some headway, and I know revenue sharing is going to be a big deal, and we're not going to get into that whole thing. But then, when it came to open mic time, Rob Manfred stuck his foot in his mouth many, many, many times. And I'm not going to get into my disdain for Rob Manfred. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on what he said yesterday.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's other than the paycheck, I would assume that it's not the most desirable position to be in, right. Especially during a labor dispute. And so, he's trying to, find that balance of like representing the game as a whole, but still being beholden to the owners. And so he's walking this tightrope that's virtually impossible. But I just wish that, I guess, we just operated in more transparency. Not even just in baseball, but like life in general. Like I'm pretty transparent in my thoughts and my opinions and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean people, everyone's going to agree with me or whatever. But I feel like if you're convicted in your thoughts and you're convicted in your beliefs, that, you shouldn't have a problem just being transparent about it. And I realize that there's a lot of factors that go into it, but, you would just like to see a little less, maybe like double talk, So, but I mean, listen, I don't know of any commissioner of any sport that hasn't had to play both sides or, it not exactly makes sense maybe when he's talking because of something he said previously or, would have to change later. It's a very complicated issue, but I'm just ready for the whole thing to be over.
Yeah. And one thing that killed me, and then we'll move on from this, but one thing that killed me, I want your thoughts on it. When he said that you'd be better off playing the stock market than being an MLB owner, that's BS.
Oh yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, the value, it's with, most professional sports franchises, I would assume. I mean, like, it's at, the highest level at the major league level, the values of them increase the second you sign on as owner. So yeah, that's just not true. And I can't imagine that anyone in their right mind would buy that. And I don't think anyone's feeling sorry for these dudes. I don't. So no. I can't imagine they're going to convince anyone to pity these, billionaire owners.
Well, and you look at how much it's astronomically grown since George Steinbrenner. And I use this example in our podcast today that we did last night. George Steinbrenner bought the Yankees for $15 million. You know how many Yankees franchises that Corey Seager can now buy with his own salary? 0.
Oh, back then.
Back then.
Oh, I was like, he can't afford the Yankees.
No, not big.
I can't do the math, but it's a lot. You're asking me to do math, and that's not going to happen. But yes, multiple times over.
With 1 year's salary, he could buy 3 Yankees teams back then. So to give me that BS,
it's not going down. Yeah.
No. All right. So let's transition to kind of your career. And I mean, you've had a long, illustrious career, and you're a fan favorite, and we love seeing you on the TV. And how difficult is it though to grow into relationships with guys like Elvis and Rugi and like this last year in one season have them depart and go to other teams? I mean, it's got to be difficult.
Yeah, it's hard. And it's been hard since I started. And once I got here in 2004 and then really started covering the team pretty closely in Bucks last year. So that would have been 2006. To me, I've been around the organization for almost 20 years. And, in that time, when you spend that amount of time with people, with, coaches, players, their families, the staff, all that kind of stuff, you develop those relationships, and they're real. The the care that you have for them, the desire that you have for them to succeed, and want them to do well so badly. And it's, it was hard. I remember when Michael Young got traded, I felt like he was kind of my caretaker in the clubhouse. And, the thought of him being gone was kind of terrifying to me. Fortunately, at that point in time, Adrian was on the scene. And Adrian took great care of me. And, then kind of, there was two really separate times in my career. And one of the first was when I first got here. And a lot of those guys were like brothers. I mean, like we were in similar life places. We were having kids. We were getting married, having all that stuff. And we were all kind of in the same relatively close age range. I mean, it was, Ian Kinsler and Michael Young and Colby Lewis and, all these guys that we could shoot the shit and talk about kids and, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden I kind of looked up and those guys were gone and Derek Collins calling me mom. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? So I did take on more of like a nurturing role with the younger guys, with guys like Elvis and Ruby and Joey and Nomar Mazzara, Delino DeShields. Like I can't even name all of them, but to where it was, and obviously I wanted Michael and Ian and Colby and Knapp and all those guys to succeed, obviously. But like when you have that kind of mother-son type relationship that I still have with Ruby and Elvis and Joey, the desire for them to do good and want good things for them and be protective of them. It's a different type of relationship. And so when those guys went, it was hard. I mean, with Ruby and with Elvis. And then Joey, I mean, I sat in the dugout and cried, it happened right before the game. And it just was, it's hard. And, they always say, I mean, I remember being taught in journalism, when I was in college, like you can't get emotionally attached and blah, blah, blah. And if it was like political, if I was a political reporter or something like that, maybe I might think differently, but I'm like, it's just sports. And the reason I got into it is because I love it. And this is the team I grew up. Well, like I was a Rangers fan growing up. I mean, my godfather was Mike Hargrove. We loved the Rangers. We loved all of our Texas teams. And so the idea that I would get to cover them as a part of my job was a dream come true. And you're crazy if you think, you're not going to get emotionally attached, whether you're, working for the team or not working for the team. And so, for me, that was something I bucked pretty early on after getting here. And it was the same way when I covered tech. I was invested in that program. That's where I went to college like that. I wanted them to do well. Does it mean I'm going to tell you that, the Rangers won 7-3 when really they lost 6-4? No, I mean, I can still be objective while having those emotions and while having those relationships. And so I really prided myself on being able to kind of balance those two things, still doing my job at what is hopefully a high level. And then two, nurturing those relationships that I've developed because I wouldn't trade them for anything.
Yeah. And I learned the same thing at J school. They say the same thing. I went to J school at WT and, you get out there and at first you're like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm going to not get invested, but you know what? You can't hold your emotions. And, even just covering high school kids, I mean, you interview them so many times and you build their trust. And then all of a sudden they're giving you hugs and crying when they lose in the playoffs. And it's like, okay, this is different than what I expected it to be. And you just kind of roll with it, but you also got to build those relationships and keep them. And it's so important. And you've done a great job with it. And I want to talk about, with Adrian Beltre, and I heard you on the radio, I think it was on Ben and Skin, talking about Beltre and how when he first got there, it was kind of hard for you to get in with him because he's got that gruff exterior and he's got that intimidating look. So talk about how that relationship built and when you first met him and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that one took some time. But you know what? It was the same way with Michael. Michael was always the pro. He was always at his locker, but it took a while for us to get past just baseball, and for him to feel comfortable with me and vice versa. And so, Adrian was similar. The thing that was different about Adrian was he was very intimidating, and it was not intentional. That was just that's just his personality. And he didn't talk every day to the media like Michael did. And so it was a different sort of process to develop that relationship. And, it happened just like any other. It may have just taken a little more time, to where I felt comfortable, joking with him or telling him bad jokes or making cracks and whatever. And then, just slowly over time, he became more comfortable with me and I became more comfortable with him. And, when you're in a clubhouse, like there's just so much jabbing, like it's just like poke. You just have to, be able to, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be a part of all that, jackassery or whatever, if you don't want to. But like for me, if I'm going to get these guys to, loosen up and be comfortable around me so that I can, in turn show our viewers, who they are off the field.
Well, and luckily it fed into your personality because you like that shit,
Oh yeah. I mean, and I've had dude friends my entire life. I was raised by a man. My sister and I were raised by our dad. And so that to me, that was fun. Like I like jabbing, and I can dish it out and I can sure as hell take it. And so it just, once we got into that space, we developed a really good relationship, and then I became really close with his wife and his kids, and really I just adore them as a family. The Beltray children are some of the most respectful, well-behaved children I've ever encountered. And to have that in a major league clubhouse, like when AJ would be in there, and just they're just the best kids, and they're just such a wonderful family. And it's like I've said before, I felt like a part of the Rangers organization. I have for a long time, but with Adrian and Sandra, I felt like a part of the family. Like I felt like I just wasn't a part of the organization. I was also part of the family. And that to me is and I've told Sandra and Adrian both this a million times, that like, that's the biggest compliment I could give them, or biggest, sign of gratitude that I could give them, as the way that they made me feel.
And let's talk about pre-World Series run. Was there any other guys that you grew fond of prior to 2010? Oh
gosh, I'm sure. I know there were. It's so hard to, like Doug Mathis. Doug Mathis was a great dude, who has, obviously come back now, is on our scene again. I mean, there were so many. I didn't really get close to a group until like probably, 8 and 9.
Marlon Byrd, Nelly Cruz.
Oh, Marlon Byrd. Loved Marlon Byrd. Nelly. I mean, of course. How do you not love Nelly?
Oh, yeah.
Best smile in baseball. I can't believe I forgot Nelly. Yeah. Nelson Cruz, of course. Ron Washington. I mean, we still stay in touch. I freaking adore that man. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton. I'd have to go through literally like every roster because everything runs together. But I don't think I was terribly close with anyone, before those 2008, 9, 10 teams. But Wash was just.
He's amazing. Wash.
Yep, he is.
He's Wash. That's how baseball go.
Yep.
All right. So you almost stepped away in 2015. And I know part of the story that I heard, I was working and I had to step away when you were talking about it, but a certain thing happened, I believe. I'm just paraphrasing. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. A certain thing happened, I believe it was a Ruggie Odor walk-off home run. And it kind of, and he said something to you after the game or whatever. Yeah. And it kind of reset things.
Yeah, so my dad had died that year, and I thought I went into the season and had told the Rangers that I was going to step away after that season. And so we went through the entire year. And I was, telling myself this is what I'm doing. I told those close to me, and it was August or September. Maybe it was August. And my mother-in-law texted me and she was like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And so I remember it was a day game on Sunday, and I was like, I'll be home if you want to come over after I put the kids down, maybe around 8, whatever. So she comes over, we sit on the back porch, and she basically was just like, I don't believe for one second you're ready to retire. You're good at your job. You love it. Like, why are you doing this? And then she said, and plus, and this is coming from my husband's mom. She's like, do you really want to be on Mike's budget? Like, so I started laughing, and and it made me think. But then by that time I was like, we basically had already, tried to kind of put the wheels in place for who would replace me, how that would look. Like, I wanted to leave the Rangers in a good spot. And then I was just like, okay, but, whatever, great conversation. It was creeping into my mind. And then that next week, Rugi made a couple boneheaded plays during a game. And I remember he went back into the dugout and Adrian's like slapping him on the head. And, Rugi's like tucking his tail between his legs because he screwed up. And then later in the game, he had like a RBI double to win the game. And it was total redemption. And so he did the interview with me post game on the field. And it was the best interview he'd ever done. Like, cause he's still intimidated because of the English and he didn't feel very comfortable, but he did great. And I was really, really proud of him. And so as we're walking off into the tunnel, I gave him a huge hug and I was like, I am so proud of you. That was the best interview you've ever done. And he was like, really, Emmy? And I was like, yes, it was. And I got like super emotional. And he's like, are you crying? And I was like, I don't know.
There's no crying in baseball.
And so after that, I was like, he made me feel like, because he was like, thank you so much for working with me and for helping me. And, and to see him at that moment for me was like, man, I'm going to miss these moments. And I don't know that I'm ready for them to be over. And so, and then I changed my mind and we do 1-year contracts. I have the opportunity, it's my decision every year until they decide, I guess, but they leave it up to me every year. They don't make me sign a multi-year deal. They respect the fact that, I'm kind of a season by season thing, because a lot goes on with kids and family and all that kind of stuff. So, but every year I've come back and this will be, like I said, 18th covering the team, the 9th season working for the team.
Well, we hope there's 18 more, but I know life is good. You're like, no. So this was a surprise question. These are some of the surprises I told you beforehand that last Rangers game that I was able to attend was in 2015. It was a beautiful Sunday in Arlington, and the Rangers were playing the Red Sox, and Josh Hamilton hit a walk-off 2-run double, and Prince Fielders round and third and rumbling, slides into home. They win. Everything goes crazy. And I got to witness something extremely special because we were walking out of the stadium after it's over. And then we all know the Gatorade bass that the guys would play back then. So we're walking out and I'm like, hold on, because we could see you interviewing Josh after the game. And I was like, wait, we got to see if they're able to dunk him. And I did not expect Rudy to come up behind you and give you the Gatorade bath. And so Elvis got Josh and then Rugi got you. So talk about that moment.
It was actually Robinson too.
Was it Trinos? Yeah.
It was another one I absolutely adore, I guarantee will be a manager someday and he'll be incredible. And people, there was so much, like, that thing went so viral so fast. And then people kind of got on Elvis and like, it wasn't just on Elvis, and Elvis is texting me like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Whatever.
It was a very hot day. It probably felt good.
It was. My only thing was like, can you see through my dress? Because it was pretty light. And, and then people were like, you couldn't get out of the way. I was like, listen, I don't mind the Gatorade bath, showers, Powerade, whatever it is. I'm now able to kind of get out of the way. So, and there never was like a concerted effort, I don't think, to get me. Well, actually I knew there was, but we would always joke about it. But I didn't think they would ever get me because they're always going for the guy and then I can see him coming. So the whole double thing really was brilliant on their part, but totally threw me off. And I was completely in shock and I literally did not know what to do. Like, I'm like, should we stop the interview and go off the air? I don't know what to do. And so my producer, Kurt Dykert, was in my ear and he's like, keep going. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to keep going. And then Josh was like patting me with the towel and whatever. And people always ask about the Powerade baths and stuff, because that was kind of the shtick for a while. And, some people would get tired of it, kind of annoyed by it. It's old, it's over, it's tired, forget about it. And I'm like, my whole thing was, even to the point where, to be honest, Fox at that time was asking me to like tell him to cut it back. And I'm like, let me tell you something. I'm not telling those guys that's not my that's not my place. That is not my place to tell them how they want to run their celebrations or their clubhouse. That's not my place. And I'm not going to do that. But, people, some people loved it. Some people were like, this is tired. And my whole thing was like, this is not, it has nothing to do with, I have no control over this. And if this is the way those guys choose to celebrate, it's a long, long season. And if they want to celebrate by pouring Powerade on each other, I don't care. I would prefer not to be, take it on full brunt like I did with Josh, but that's their thing. And you know what else? Now that we've not been very good and not won a whole lot of games recently, I'm like, bring it back and I'll take every one of them if that means we're winning. So yeah, but that has become, it's part of my identity at this point.
No, it was funny. Yeah, Josh, they gave you towels and you were able to kind of cover yourself up because, yeah. And that dress, didn't you sell it or not put it up for auction? Was it Do It for Dirt?
Yep. The Do It for Dirt Foundation, we auctioned off. I think it's like $1,500 or something ridiculous. Like, but I guess it's a one of a kind. It's a one of a kind. There will definitely never be another.
Did you wash it before putting it up?
Not.
So everybody gets to smell Jones BO and Gatorade.
There you go.
Powerade. Yep. All right. So we're winding down here. So you are from Texas, obviously, from West Texas. By the way, do you miss the West Texas wind? Because it's blowing its butt off right now.
I do not miss the wind. I miss the people. I love West Texas. I loved growing up there. I loved spending the first half of my life there. I loved it. I loved everything about it. And that, but I don't miss that. I should say that. I love everything about West Texas except for the weather. And really just when it's windy, that's the worst.
And going to Hereford, right?
And going to Hereford because you smell the cows.
Well, let's talk about Whataburger. What's your go-to Whataburger?
Ooh, so I do a number one with cheese, no onions, dry.
Okay. Yeah. Is it the meal? You get the fries and everything?
Yeah. Water to drink, but I'd crush some fries.
Spicy or regular ketchup?
I like a mix. Yeah.
Me too. You and Eric Nadell. Mix.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Good.
All right, so let's talk about, you got the hat on. I know you're not wearing your Plainview stuff, but you are repping the mom game. So y'all had Captain America, Roger Staubach, on the podcast. So talk about the mom game and how fun that's been, because y'all just had your 100th episode, correct?
100th episode with Roger Staubach.
Roger Staubach.
That's
my son, I named my son's name is Trey Roger for a reason.
Yeah. Yes.
I went for Troy Roger, but the ex-wife.
So Roger and his lovely wife, Marianne, came on for our 100th episode. It's basically just Julie Dobbs and I, which if you're in the Dallas area, you probably know Julie from the Ticket sports radio station. She and I teamed up a couple of years ago to start this podcast and really had no idea what we were doing or where it was going. And we just celebrated our 100th episode. It's been a blast. It's basically just, as two people who have a combined, 3.5 decades of sports experience, we kind of wanted there's not many female voices out here, especially in the DFW area. So we felt like this was kind of a niche where we could talk sports, we could give our perspectives on things, and then just talk about our lives and being a mom and juggling everything. And the response is that we really do talk about everything. I mean, and our tagline is, not just moms, not just sports, it's everything in between there. It's been a ton of fun. We'll literally open a bottle of wine, sit there and shoot the shit, bring on guests. And it's a lot of fun. And it's not just for moms. It's not just for sports fans. It really does. We have a ton of male viewers and we have a ton of female viewers.
I'm one.
There. Thank you. We just felt like it was kind of, it was a niche that wasn't being filled, and it was something that we thought might be fun, and now it's really taken off, and we're totally digging it.
Well, Emily, this has been an absolute blast. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully you get to enjoy a whole lot more success this year. My over under is 80 wins. We'll see what happens because there's going to be
taking the over.
You're taking the over. I like it. There's going to be a whole lot more dishes coming once this damn thing ends, and hopefully ends sooner rather than later, and we don't lose any games. But Emily, again, thank you very much. We enjoyed it, and good luck, and keep taking care of them kids. I mean, you're a damn good mom. Enjoy seeing some of the stories.
Well, thanks. They might disagree with you, but I appreciate it.
All right. Well, have a great one, Em, and go Herd.
Oh, come on. Go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to the Ranger Report podcast. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and at therangerreport.com. Thanks for listening to the Ranger Report podcast. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and at therangerreport.com.